Bonjour les élèves. Aujourd'hui, on va faire une leçon sur le paysage. Aujourd'hui, on va faire une leçon sur le paysage. Today, we are going to do a lesson on paysage. Paysage is what? Paysage is landscape. Like in the previous lessons, we have studied la géographie. In geography, we talk of paysage, but paysage can also be la mer, la montagne, la campagne, les villes, les villages. In the sense that when we talk about planning our vacation, which we have also done in the past, you have seen we have talked about la mer, la montagne, la campagne, les villes, les villages. So, today we will start with different kind of landscape that we find in the world, and how do you say that in French? Le paysage littoral. Le paysage littoral. So, le paysage littoral is where the land meets the sea. So, definitely all the sea beaches are primarily le paysage littoral. But remember, le paysage littoral is a geographic term. So, when we talk in our everyday language, we say au bord de la mer. Au bord de la mer. So, au bord de la mer, when we were talking about vacation, if you remember, we talked about it. We will come back how to use these words in that context much later. So, just remember, le paysage littoral is where the land meets the sea. So, la mer is basically actually called au bord de la mer. Au bord is the beach. So, that exact location is called le paysage littoral. But let me tell you very clearly that we don't use this term very much in our everyday conversation. But since we are doing an entire understanding of le paysage, therefore, it is useful to remember this. Another kind of paysage can be le désert. Le désert is the desert. You know, we have one desert in India, and that is in Rajasthan. So, like le désert is basically, le désert est une région du globe où la pluie, la faune et la flore sont rares. Et on ne trouve partout dans le monde. Certains sont chauds avec des dunes de sable, d'autres sont de glace. So, this is a moment when we can actually learn a few new words. So, le désert est une région du globe où la pluie, we have learnt it when we were doing the seasons, où la pluie means the rain, la faune et la flore. La faune is fauna. Fauna is actually any living, moving being that is called like animals, insects, birds. They are all part of the fauna. Et la flore. Flore is fauna, anything that is plant, trees, or any kind of vegetation. So, where the rain, fauna and flora are rare. So, in desert, you don't have many animals and plants. Et on trouve, here you see we have learned on and e in our previous lessons. So, on trouve partout dans le monde. That means we find desert all over the world. Certains sont chauds, some of them are very hot, avec des dunes de sable. Dune means dunes and sable is sand. So, some of them are hot with sand dunes. D'autres sont de glace. Glace is ice. So, you have also cold desert. Like in India also, around Himalayas, we have some cold desert. So desert is of two types. That can be les déserts chauds or déserts de glace. But when we say desert, we primarily remember the sand dunes. So le désert du Rajasthan, the desert of Rajasthan, is very, very popular tourist destination. And apart from that, dans le monde entier, in the entire world, there are multiple deserts. Sahara en Afrique, and here I am going to again give you some name of the countries which we have also learnt in our previous lessons: Algeria, Maroc, Tunisie, Libya, Egypt, Mauritania. So Sahara is so big that it covers Algérie, Maroc, Tunisie, Libye, Egypt, Mauritanie et les autres pays. Les pays means the countries. Le désert d'Arabie is the Arabian desert. Arabie Saoudite is one country, Bahrain, Iraq, Jordani, Kuwait. So there are multiple countries also in that desert area. Then you have the famous desert, the Gobi en Asie. In Mongolia and China, there is this Gobi desert that you have heard of. And le désert du Kalahari en Afrique, like in Botswana, Namibia, Afrique du Sud, there is another big desert. So when we talk of desert, we think of camels. Les chameaux means les camels. So you can spend your night dans les tentes, dans le désert. So we will come to that vacation part much later. And you have to also remember there is also salt desert. Salt desert, yes, where after the sedimentation of salt, the entire water body becomes like a desert. Like in Gujarat, we have Rann of Kutch. Rann de Kutch is a salt desert. So when we are talking of different kind of landscape, keep in mind in India, we have cold desert, we have salt desert, and we have also normal sand dune deserts in Rajasthan. Then another type of paysage or landscape is la montagne. La montagne, you know, the mountains. Les montagnes sont partout dans le monde. En Inde, on a différentes chaînes de montagnes, mountain chains, la chaîne de montagnes. So, in India, you can think of les Himalayas, les Aravallis, the Himalayas and the Aravallis. So, these are two different kinds of mountains. Les Himalayas are ice-clad, il y a des glaces. Et les Aravallis, Aravallis is the oldest mountain range in the world. Les Aravallis. So in Delhi and around surrounding area from Delhi up to Rajasthan, you have the Aravallis. So again, I will just repeat. So another kind of paysage or landscape is the mountains. Now, la mer. So when we were talking of le paysage littoral, we were talking of the sea. So sea itself is not a landscape, but when you talk of paysage, you can talk of the sea because we can see the sea from the land. So la mer is like a huge water body, and a bigger water body is called l'océan, and lac is lakes, smaller ones. So as you know, there are multiple seas which are basically lakes around the world. So, je vais vous demander de chercher les plus grands lacs de le monde. I would request you to look for the biggest lakes of the world. And you will see some of the biggest lakes are called as sea. So, just to repeat, la mer, l'océan, le lac. So these are three different kinds of water bodies. So after that, le paysage urbain. The paysage urbain is very much well known to all of you. It's the city landscape. Le paysage urbain. So what are the features of le paysage urbain? Les rues, les boulevards, les bâtiments, les grandes rues, beaucoup de voitures, beaucoup de lumière la nuit. So, did you follow me? Dans le paysage urbain, on trouve les grandes rues, les grands bâtiments, beaucoup de lumière le soir. So, in a cityscape, you have big roads, huge buildings, skyscrapers, and loads of lights in the evening. So, le paysage urbain, la campagne. So, another kind of landscape is la campagne. La campagne means the countryside. So, in the countryside, what do you have? Vous avez des petites maisons. Les maisons sont un peu écartées. They are all at some distance. And les champs, les vaches, cultiver les légumes, la forêt. So, again, we are learning a few new words. Les champs means the fields. Les vaches means the cows. So, in villages, you have les grands champs, les vaches, the cows, cultiver des légumes means farming the vegetables, la forêt, the forest. So, these are the typical notion of countryside. Le paysage polaire. So, when we are talking of different kind of landscape, let's not forget that we have also two different kind of landscapes in the North Pole and in the South Pole. So, that paysage is called le paysage polaire. Again, like le paysage littoral, le paysage polaire is rather a geographic term. Le paysage polaire and le paysage littoral are rather geographic terms. But since we are doing all kinds of landscape, I thought it will be useful for you to get introduced to this kind of terms as well. So, while we were talking about the water bodies, we find la rivière ou le fleuve à la campagne, dans les montagnes, and also dans les villes. So, in the cities, in the countryside, and also in the mountains, you have la rivière et le fleuve. Like in English, we just use the word river. In French, we have two different words for river. One is la rivière and the other one is le fleuve. Le fleuve, so what is the difference between la rivière et le fleuve? A fleuve empties into a sea. That means a fleuve starts from its source, it goes up to the sea, whereas while a river flows into another one or into a lake. So, you have to be very careful, like les Ganges, the Ganges is a river or a fleuve. How do you differentiate? Because from the source, the Ganges flows through India and it empties into the sea. So, it is a fleuve. On the other hand, you will find many other smaller rivers, they go smaller rivers which go and falls into some other, like for example, Beas. Beas does not, in India, Beas does not empties into the sea. It joins another river or joins into another river. So, what happens is when you are calling les Ganges in French, it is a fleuve, and when you are talking of Beas, it is une rivière. So, la rivière et le fleuve. So, you have these two terms which are new, but which is part of the paysage. So, when we were talking about les vacances, you remember we asked, qu'est-ce que tu fais pendant les vacances? So, now you have multiple ways of saying why you want to go to some place and what is the reason you like that place. So, when you say je vais à la mer, you know la mer is part of le paysage littoral. So, qu'est-ce que tu fais pendant les vacances? Je vais à la mer. J'adore le paysage littoral. And when we were talking about la mer, we also talked about le bord de la mer. The bord means that's the plage, that's the beach. So, je vais m'allonger sur la plage. If you remember, we have learned this thing, je m'allonge, tu t'allonges, il s'allonge, elle s'allonge, means I'm going to stretch myself on the sea beach. So, la plage is beach. So, you have now multiple ways of explaining why you like la mer, pourquoi tu aimes la mer, and you can also talk about its physical features. Then, we have also talked about qu'est-ce que tu fais pendant les vacances? Je vais à la campagne. I am going to the countryside. And today we have learned that cultiver les légumes, you can say je vais à la campagne voir mes parents. You know, mes parents means relatives. So, je vais à la campagne visiter mes parents. Ils ont beaucoup de vaches, they have loads of cows, et ils ont des champs et ils cultivent différentes sortes de légumes. And they cultivate different kind of vegetables. So, you can also say, j'adore la tranquillité de la campagne et je vais passer des bons moments avec la nature. So, this is another thing that we are going to do today, like you are going to explain also the physical feature of different landscape. Qu'est-ce que tu fais pendant les vacances? Je vais à la campagne. À la campagne, il y a des vaches, il y a des légumes fraîches, il y a aussi les rivières ou le fleuve. So, you can say much more about your vacation plans. So, another thing that we have done, qu'est-ce que tu fais pendant les vacances? You said, je vais aux forêts. You remember? Je vais aux forêts. So, dans les forêts, il y a les arbres, les plantes, les animaux, il y a les fleuves, il y a la rivière. So, now, with the vacation plan, you can talk more. So, la rivière et le fleuve, I told you the difference. So, you can explain that il y a des poissons dans le fleuve, il y a des poissons de la rivière, il y a un grand lac, there is a big lake. So, these are the different ways of explaining your vacation plan. So, now, again, like when you say, j'adore les animaux, you remember we have learned this expression in les vacances, the lesson which was called les vacances. We said adorer, aimer, ne pas aimer. So, on va rester dans une tente pendant la nuit et on va faire le feu devant la tente. So, in that case, you know, j'adore les animaux. On va rester dans la forêt. We are going to stay in the forest. On va rester dans une tente. We are going to put a tent and stay inside. Pendant la nuit, during the night, on va faire le feu devant la tente. We are going to make the fire in front of the tent because the fire in front of the tent would chase away the wild animals. How do you say wild animals? Les animaux sauvages. Les animaux sauvages. So, now with this thing, I would say that you can carry out an entire conversation in French about your vacation plans. And with the prepositions and the vocabulary, you can say anything for your vacation plans. And now you can relate it to the different kind of landscapes. Qu'est-ce que tu fais pendant les vacances? What do you do during the vacation? Je n'ai encore décidé means I have not yet decided. So you remember, je n'ai encore is have not yet. So ne pas, non encore, ne jamais. So you can also use these terms. Je n'ai encore décidé si je vais à la montagne ou à la campagne. C'est difficile pour moi parce que j'aime la mer, la ville, la montagne et la campagne. So you understand what I said? C'est difficile pour moi. Facile, opposite is difficile. Facile is easy, difficile is difficult. So when we talk, you can say, j'aime la mer, mais je n'aime pas le soleil. J'aime la mer, mais je n'aime pas le soleil. I like the sea, but I don't like sun. La ville, j'adore la ville, mais il y a trop de bruit. So you have also learned trop, an adverb that is used to show something negative. Dans la ville, il y a trop de bruit. Similarly, you can say, dans la montagne, il y a trop de moustiques. Moustique is mosquito. À la campagne, il y a la tranquillité. Or you can say, la campagne est trop tranquille. So if you don't like really very calm and quiet place always, to say that la campagne est trop tranquille. But it is rare that people would say that. So now with this, we are coming to understanding of the entire world and the earth. So the earth is in French la terre. La terre is the earth and le monde is the world. And on doit protéger la terre means we should protect the earth. So with this, I would tell you that now we are going to see how you can use these things in a conversation. Like, for example, vous rencontrez votre amie Isabelle à New Delhi. Vous rencontrez votre amie Isabelle à New Delhi. Vous allez partir en vacances. You are going to live on vacation. Vous allez voyager. Vous allez voyager. You are going to travel. Isabelle adore les montagnes. Isabelle adore les montagnes. Mais vous n'aimez pas les montagnes, vous aimez la campagne. Ou vous aimez la mer. Et quand vous parlez, vous devez justifier pourquoi vous aimez la montagne ou pourquoi vous détestez la montagne. Donc, comment vous allez le dire? Dans les montagnes, on doit marcher trop. Dans les montagnes, on doit marcher, we should walk a lot. On doit monter et descendre. J'ai mal aux pieds. Mal aux pieds means my legs will hurt if I go up and down too much. So this is the way you can now have an entire conversation for your vacation and relating them to the paysage or the landscape. So, si vous aimez la mer et si vous détestez le soleil, qu'est-ce que vous allez faire? Si vous aimez la mer, if you love the sea, et vous détestez le soleil and you don't like the sun, then what do? So similarly, now I would request you, écrivez un passage sur le paysage autour de vous. Autour means around. So try to write a paragraph around you, describing the landscape around you. Écrivez un passage sur le paysage autour de vous. And try to use all the expressions that we have learned today. And also, we have learned le paysage littoral, le paysage polaire. So also write another paragraph et sur votre voyage de rêve and your dream travel plan. So, écrivez un passage sur le paysage autour de vous et votre voyage de rêve and try to use all the landscape, desert, sea, ocean that we have learned today. Bon courage, bonne continuation, à la prochaine et au revoir.